The Netherlands, a country defined by its relationship with water. For 1,000 years, the Dutch have been locked in a battle with the sea, building dikes, reclaiming land, and fighting to keep the water out. They have spent centuries perfecting the art of separating land from water. So why, after all that effort, are they now deliberately starting to build their cities on top of the water? Most cities are trying to keep water out. The Dutch have decided to build on it instead. And now the rest of the world is paying them to teach them how. This is the story of how the Dutch are pioneering a new kind of city, a floating city, and why it might be the future for coastal communities everywhere. Beneath every floating home in Amsterdam's Schoonschip neighborhood sits a hollow concrete pontoon, an unassuming box, but the secret to staying dry when the canal rises or storms sweep through. Each pontoon is a 6-meter by 6-meter module, reinforced with corrosion-resistant steel and sealed to keep water out for decades. This is not just a boat hull, it is engineered to support up to 800 tons, enough for a family home, its solar panels, and all the daily life above. The concrete mix itself borrows from shipbuilding. Fly ash and silica fume replace part of the cement, boosting durability in the brackish Dutch water. That is where the mooring system comes in. Telescopic steel piles, each up to 30 meters long, are driven deep into the canal bed. The pontoons slide up and down these piles, quietly following the water's rise and fall, up to 2 meters of vertical travel, while staying perfectly in place. Hydraulic dampers at the pile heads absorb the shock from waves or ship wakes, keeping movement well below the threshold where even a cow would get seasick. These details matter. Residents report feeling safer during storms, knowing their homes rise with the water instead of fighting it. Connecting a floating city to the outside world takes more than sturdy anchors. Schoonschip's homes link to the grid through flexible, waterproof EPDM joints, rubberized conduits that stretch and bend as the platforms move. Each line carries electricity, water, sewage, and data, all bundled together beneath the smart jetty that runs the length of the community. Inside these conduits, double-walled pipes and silicone-sealed manifolds keep everything dry, while fiber optic cables ensure data flows as smoothly as canal water. Redundancy is built in. If a storm cuts off the main supply, backup battery banks and emergency pumps keep the essentials running. This careful choreography of concrete, steel, and flexible connections forms the backbone of daily life afloat. It is not just about surviving the water, but thriving on it, making room for solar panels, heat pumps, and even peer-to-peer energy trading. The result is a neighborhood that moves with the tides, built to last, and ready for whatever the climate brings next. Life in Schoonschip runs on a different current. Here, energy isn't just something piped in from a distant power plant. It is generated, shared, and managed by the community itself. Every rooftop bristles with solar panels, feeding power not only into each home's battery, but into a neighborhood-wide smart grid. When the sun is shining, households generate more electricity than they use. Instead of letting it go to waste, residents trade their surplus with neighbors through a digital platform, using a blockchain ledger to keep things transparent and fair. It is a system that rewards those who produce extra and helps everyone cut their bills. Heating follows the same logic. Rather than burning gas, homes draw warmth from the canal below. Heat pumps extract low-grade energy from the water, which is then distributed through a shared loop. On cold mornings, the water beneath the pontoons keeps the chill at bay. In summer, the same system cools the homes. This closed cycle means the neighborhood rarely needs to pull energy from the city grid, making Schoonschip close to energy neutral year-round. But it is not just about technology. The real engine of Schoonschip is its cooperative model. Decisions about maintenance, budgets, or new projects are made through a digital platform where every resident has a vote. This is not a top-down home owners association. It is a self-governing community. Residents pool resources for shared electric cars and bikes, organize local food deliveries, and manage waste collectively. The result is a tight-knit neighborhood where technology and trust go hand in hand. Ask people here how they feel about storms, and you will hear a quiet confidence. One resident puts it simply, "We feel safer when the water rises because we rise with it." In a country where the saying goes, "God created the earth, but the Dutch created the Netherlands," this floating neighborhood is the latest chapter in a long story of living with water by turning it from a threat into an ally. Rotterdam doesn't just live with water, it is built beneath it. Nearly 90% of the city sits below sea level, a fact that has shaped every decision its leaders make about the future. Instead of retreating from the threat, Rotterdam has turned water into an ally, launching a series of floating flagships that push the limits of urban design. City officials have made adaptation a core mission. The floating office Rotterdam stands as proof. It is a carbon-negative headquarters for the Global Center on Adaptation, anchored in the Rijnhaven Basin. Its superstructure, made from cross-laminated timber, sits atop 15 concrete pontoons, each engineered for decades of service. The building cools itself by circulating canal water through its floors, skipping air conditioning altogether. Even the roof doubles as a solar array, generating more energy than the building consumes and feeding the surplus back into the city grid. But Rotterdam's experiments are not limited to offices. Just across the harbor, a floating dairy farm brings agriculture straight into the heart of the port. 40 cows live on a 3-story platform, their daily routines managed by robotic milking arms and automated feeding systems. Each day, the herd produces around 800 liters of milk, processed and bottled on site before heading to local stores. Manure is collected and converted into biogas, powering most of the farm's operations. Rainwater is harvested for cleaning and drinking, closing the loop on water use. These projects are not just technical showcases, they are city policy in action. Rotterdam's climate adaptation strategy grants fast-track permits for floating structures that meet strict energy and sustainability standards. The city's adaptation office, led by specialists in water management, sees floating development as a way to add homes, workplaces, and food production without claiming scarce land or risking flood losses. In Rotterdam, the floating city is not a vision for the future, it is already a fact of daily life. A few thousand kilometers from the Dutch canals, an entire floating city is taking shape in the Maldives. Here the stakes are existential. Over 80% of the country sits less than 1 meter above sea level. Dutch engineers have partnered with Maldivian planners to build a modular city for 20,000 people, arranged in a swirling pattern inspired by brain coral. Beneath each home and school, concrete pontoons are fabricated in shipyards, then towed into place and joined like puzzle pieces. The goal is not just to survive sea level rise, but to prove that cities can grow horizontally across water, much as the elevator once unlocked vertical growth on land. Koen Oltuus, who calls himself a city doctor, puts it this way: the elevator made skyscrapers possible. Floating technology will let cities expand onto water. Interest is rising far beyond the Indian Ocean. In Miami, city officials have studied Dutch blueprints as hurricane tides threaten waterfront neighborhoods. In Dhaka, where seasonal floods force millions from their homes, planners are weighing modular pontoons as a way to create safer, more flexible housing. The checklist is long. Local laws must recognize floating homes as real property. Insurers need to price in storm motion and waive risk. And builders have to adapt to unfamiliar materials and maintenance routines. Even in the Netherlands, it took years for floating homes to be seen as more than just houseboats. In new markets, the cultural leap can be just as challenging as the technical one. For every city eager to copy the Dutch model, the obstacles are real. Insurers want proof that a floating neighborhood can withstand a century storm. Regulators debate how to tax or zone a home that rises and falls with the tide. Residents wonder if living on water will ever feel as stable or as permanent as life on land. The Dutch answer is pragmatic. Treat water as a foundation, not a threat, and design for change rather than fighting it. As more cities face rising seas, the blueprint may be ready for export, but every place will have to write its own chapter. Cities everywhere face rising seas, but floating neighborhoods like Schoonschip prove that resilience can be engineered. Right now, over 800 million people live in coastal flood zones. The Dutch aren't just adapting, they're offering a blueprint. Dive deeper with Blueprint Files. Subscribe for more stories shaping tomorrow.